Let's go ahead and crack down on example number 2, and we're going to do another quadratic formula. All right, so let's take a look at starting the quadratic formula, and notice once again that when we do the quadratic formula, that it has to be in standard form. The ax, the bx, and the c are on the same side, and it's equal to 0. If we look at our problem right here, notice that that is not the case. All the terms are not on the same side and is not equal to 0. So I want this to look like this over here. So notice that I'm going to take my 8x and I'm going to put that over here, and I'm going to take my -1 and I'm going to put that over here as well. Okay, because they have to all be on the left side. So first I'll subtract 8x from both sides, and I get -4x squared minus 8x equals -1. All right. And notice though that you can't combine 4 and then -8, because this is x squared and this is x. The only way that we can add or subtract terms together is that they have to have the same variable and the same exponent. So that is not the case there. So let's go ahead and add 1 to both sides. So then we get -4x squared minus 8x plus 1 equals 0. And what do you know? Look at this. Ax squared plus bx plus c, -4x squared minus 8x plus 1 equals 0. So now this is what we call in standard form. And that's the first thing you actually have to do when we're going to do the quadratic formula, is you have to write it in standard form. Okay? And before we proceed to finding the a, b, and c, just a little something that may make things just a tad bit easier is, since we have an equation, meaning we have a left side and a right side, I would like to have the least amount of negative signs, just so that we take out the percentage of chance of us making an error. So I'm actually just going to divide both sides by -1. Now this isn't something that you have to do. I'm just doing that. So watch this. That means a negative divided by negative is a positive. A negative divided by negative is a positive. But then a positive divided by negative is a negative right there. Okay, and I just like this a little better, just because there's less negative signs. Okay, but if you would have just used -4 and -8 and +1, we would get the same answer. It's just a little math trick there, like, oh, okay, I'm going to divide everything by -1 to have the least amount of negative signs. Okay, so now that we have all that, let's go ahead and find out what's a, b, and c, right? So this would be our a, this would be our b, and this would be our c. So 4 is our a, 8 is our b, and c is -1. Okay? So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug it all in now. All right, so let's go ahead and rewrite it. But again, we're going to use parentheses when we do that there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write the formula. X equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, cool. So I just rewrote this guy right here, the quadratic formula. Now let's go ahead and plug in our a, b, and c. This is my b right here. This is my b. 4 times a, which is 4. 4ac, so -1, all over 2a, so 4. Okay, I hope that helps to do the parentheses so that you know exactly what the a, b, and c are, and we're not messing up on any of the signs. All right, so now it's about us now simplifying this. So we want to go ahead and take our time to find the solution. So x equals a negative times a positive. It just gives us a -8. So we can get rid of those parentheses. 8 squared right here is 64. 4 times 4 times 1 is 16. I always just do the numbers first and then let's talk about the signs. A negative times a positive is a negative. So this is all a negative number. And then a negative times a negative is a positive. Okay. And then this is all over 8s. Cool. So let's go ahead and keep going here. So this is -8 plus or minus 64 and 16 gives us 80 all over 8. Okay. So now this is not the most simplified answer. This is on the verge of being correct. what we need to do is use the skills that we learned in simplifying radicals. And since you guys are in the NFL, you guys got this. So let's go ahead and simplify radical 80. And we have to think of what is the biggest square number that goes into like 80. So let's see, 4 goes into 80, right? That's a perfect square, but I think probably a bigger number than that would go into it. I'm thinking maybe 16. See, 16 and 5. Okay, so x equals, so let's go ahead and leave the -8 there, plus or minus. So let's go ahead and rewrite that as a product of two radicals. So 16 and 5. Okay, again, we try to choose the biggest perfect square number that goes into 80 all over 8. All right, let's go ahead and keep going on here. So x equals -8 plus or minus. We could take the radical 16 now, which is 8, plus or minus. I'm sorry, not plus or minus. So radical 5 all over 8. Okay, so we're still not there yet because we can even simplify this further. Okay, and what I need you to realize is this: notice at the top, both terms, again, this is one term and this is all one term. Both terms have a common factor of 8. Okay, so what we're going to do is this. Check this out. We're going to factor out an 8 from the numerator, and then we're going to be able to cross that out with the denominator. Okay, so watch this. I'm going to go ahead and factor out an 8, and I'm going to put it in parentheses. So what's going to go back inside? All right. So 8 times what is -8? Well, that's -1, right? 8 times -1 is -8. Plus or minus. 8 times what is 8 radical 5? Wasn't that just radical 5? Right? Because 8 times radical 5 is 8 radical 5. And that's all over 8. See how this 8 is no longer connected by plus or minus? It has a multiple. That's what we wanted. We want it to be multiple because multiples can be simplified like that, you see? So finally we get x equals -1 plus or minus radical 5. Okay, so this is the most simplified answer now. And if you need to represent it as two different answers, it would be x equals -1 plus radical 5, and then x equals -1 minus radical 5. Right? And that's the whole reason for the plus or minus. So here would be the two answers, and this represents the answers as one term.